next event on the track is the men's 5,000 metres, 12.5 laps of the track, and the fellas are lined up over at the 200-metre start. You might be able to see centre of screen, just to the right there above those cages. Miles from that camera, but it's a big field. It's a huge field. I'm staggered. 27 starters go in this 5,000. It's bizarre. Why on earth there haven't been a couple of heats of, say, 15 athletes to go through to the final, I do not know. But it's a straight final, 27 starters, and of course it features the, well, unbelievably unique Jakob Ingebrigtsen, number 3 all-time in Europe, with his 12:48 back in 2021. He's the reigning champion, the defending champion, indeed going for the hat-trick here, Ingebrigtsen. Let's have a look at some of the leading lights. Well, there's a lot of big names in this field. 4 men in the field have gone under 13 minutes, plenty of them below 13:10. Most of the big names are back here. There is Henrik Ingebrigtsen, the elder brother of the 3, who helps coach Jakob. There's Jakob. We whistled past him. I mean, who's he? But we're going to stop at Heymans. Personal best indoors in Boston. Heymans 13:03 this winter. Ran a personal best in his last race. Now we found Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He had the double at the age of 17 back in 2018 in Berlin, and then 2 years ago in Munich. Again in Germany, funnily enough, retained both titles, but had been beaten a few weeks earlier in the World Championship 1,500 metres. He is, of course, the Olympic champion at 1,500 metres. We whistled past George Mills there, who was a 3:48 miler indoors this winter. Brian Fay from Dublin, only 18th in Oslo last week in 13:30, the Irishman. He wouldn't have been at all pleased with that. He's a 13:01 performer at his best. And Nordash, Narvel Hilje Nordash. He is coached by Jakob Ingebrigtsen's father, bronze medalist in Budapest last year at 1,500 metres. And the Norwegians, of course, with big hopes of a brace of medals in this one from Jakob Ingebrigtsen and Narve Nordosh. And I think this race will be a test between the strong men, these specialist 5,000-metre runners, and the milers, although many milers these days can run very, very quick 5,000s. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, the finest example of all of them. Here's one of the danger men from Switzerland, Dominic Lokinyomo Lobalu. 7:29 3,000-metre runner. He was second in Stockholm 6 days ago in 7:33 over 3,000. That was just last Sunday by the 25-year-old. He was 7th in Oslo 8 days ago in 12:50.9 for 5,000. He is the second quickest in Europe. And don't forget Ndikum Wenayo of Spain, who goes here, the European number 1 this year. 12:48 he ran in Oslo. It's a fabulously strong field. 12.5 laps of the track then, and 13 minutes these days is fairly run-of-the-mill, it has to be said, but Jakob Ingebrigtsen starts here as extraordinary favourite. Remember, just beaten by Josh Kerr a couple of weeks back in the Eugene Diamond League meeting over 1 mile, where they both ran 3:45. He's in fabulous form. He's the Olympic champion at 1,500. He's double world champion at 5,000 metres. I mean, you run out of superlatives, frankly, to describe Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He can toy with fields these days that are of the highest calibre, except he's a calibre 1 step higher in just about every race he enters. Funnily enough, though, of course, he has been beaten at the last 2 editions of the World Championships. He won gold in Tokyo at 1,500 and then proceeded to lose the World Championships in 22 to a certain Jake Whiteman. And he lost the World Championships 1,523 to a certain Josh Kerr. And both those 2 Brits were at school together in Scotland just a few years ago. How about that? But this is not a quick first lap. They've gone through there in about 65 seconds, Phil.
Yes, very pedestrian indeed. I don't think this is going to worry anybody in this large group. And as you were saying, it really does fall into the hands of the milers. We've got in there as well George Mills, very, very good 3:33 man over 1,500 metres, who's got a turn of speed. Obviously not quite as quick as Ingebrigtsen, but then so few are. And we've got Adel Machal as well. Machal leading the way at the moment. Very seasoned athlete with a great range from 1,500 metres to 10,000 metres, as they, I think it's fair to say, plod their way around the track. It's slightly quicker than some major championship 5,000 metres I've seen, but it is still pretty sedentary as they're coming round. Just about to complete 800 metres. And to the fore, it's Dogonios, one of the less heralded of the Frenchmen.
Coming through 2 laps now, and he has picked it up a fair bit on this lap. They go through, they're almost exactly 2:08, so 64-second pace per lap, and that's will bring them home in 13:20. Well, just about every man in this field has done that very comfortably, although gaps appearing already, and funnily enough, Jakob Ingebrigtsen sort of leading the chasing pack. But the Frenchman there moving aside Daguino, looking across at Michal and saying, come on, you take a lap. I've done a 64, you have a go. Well, Michal had led the previous lap, so this is a typical championship 5,000 metres. And many of these fellas actually haven't really learnt their trade that much in championship racing. They've learnt it on the commercial circuit, either in Continental Tour Gold meetings or in Diamond League meetings, where there are pacemakers that set up the early laps at a really fast pace. So this is a new experience for many of these runners. I do think that Jakob Ingebrigtsen can run here almost any way he wants. James West in there for Great Britain. He's a 13:09 performer this year. He's ran 3:34 years ago, did James West. George Mills, you mentioned, Phil, as well. Yeah, 3:31 in Oslo just last week. He's in fabulous form. And the third Brit going in this one, Jack Rowe. Well, 13:04 this year as well, Jack Rowe. He in very, very strong form indeed. But these early laps, well, you can just tell the way that they're easing their way around, just getting them out of the way, really. And I'd like to see a more honest pace. I really would. I prefer 5,000s that really do test your 5,000 metre strength.
And I think we're going to see that with Ndiwa Kamawayo moving to the front, the Burundian-born athlete who's been able to represent Spain since the end of 2022. Now, Ndiwa Kamawayo doesn't really have the same sort of turn of speed over 1,500 metres that some of the other men do. He's a 3:37 man at best, and that was quite a while ago, but he does have a very, very good speed. As we see there.
And that's one of the Brits gone down, I think. I think that might have been James West who's gone down. Yeah, George Mills right at the front now. That was horrible. But I'll tell you what, this field is too big. You know, seeing Dickon Winayo getting frustrated. And I'll tell you what, after this many years commentating, Phil, I can't remember the last time I saw a 5,000 with 27 men in it. I think it's a real error. There should have been heats. That would have tidied it up. You could have had 12 or 15 finalists, and you would then have got real 5,000 metre runners coming to the fore. They'd have been running on slightly more tired legs, whereas this effectively, dare I say it, hands the race to the milers. And George Mills must be loving this there in third place. He's got, with Ingebrigtsen and Nordash and 1 or 2 others, he's got fabulous miling speed.
Well, I've heard that comment from quite a lot of endurance runners themselves, is that the current trend for making the 5,000 a straight final really is doesn't really help the event at all, and it wouldn't have been beyond the bounds of possibility of programming, even though it would have been very warm weather, perhaps a heat on the first day and then a final towards the end of the program. And now as we look at that, we look at Dominic Labalo coming to the front.
Labalu and Dickon Winayo at the front. Now, those are the fellows who I think really should have, if not come to an arrangement and had a little chat in warm-up, then there should be a silent agreement. Now, we'll see the faller here, back in about 8th or 9th place. Yeah, and I think it is. Is that West who's gone down? Oh, how frustrating is that? And quite early in the race, too. Maybe he has the chance to get up and survive this. But that is very, very difficult indeed to recover from. And the pace has picked up, and Ingebrigtsen aware, on his toes, covering it, moving down the outside. He could do a lot worse than just to shadow Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He doesn't really get the credit for being a great racer when he needs to race. He often likes to lead, of course. So still bunched, this huge 5,000 metre field. Athletes running 3 wide, 4 wide, negotiating the traffic all the time. It makes it much more tiring when you're in the middle of that pack. And Jakob Ingebrigtsen doing the right thing here. And interesting to see George Mills moving up alongside him. When you're in the middle of a pack like that in a 5,000 and it's slow, you're constantly getting banged, you're watching the heels of the athletes in front of you, you get spiked, you hardly notice it, but you do get ripped up the front of your shins, you get people pushing you in your back. It really does sap you. And it's much nicer to be out near the front, or at least away from the really big traffic in the middle of the pack and running in clear air. And that's what you do by running around the outside, which you can do, Phil, if it's a slow pace. It doesn't matter a few extra metres around the bends in the middle of the race. But you really don't want to be in the middle of that pack. It's an untidy race, this one, so far. Well, they're inside the last mile now. Labalu leads. Mills there in second place. Heyman on the shoulder there of the leaders. But nobody yet really has committed. They've been lapping, wait for it, at 66 seconds again and again. It's desperately slow, this one. Hendrik Ingebrigtsen off the back. And Le Guin of Switzerland leading now. And when they come around this time, they'll see 3 laps to go. Still no move from Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He's biding his time, back in 5th place on the inside. Boxed at the moment, actually. And just looking at the other Brits there further back, West and Jack Rowe. West moving up down the outside. I think it might have been Jack Rowe that fell. 3 laps to go, and they go through in 10:25, there or thereabouts. Fireworks to come, but who's going to ignite them? Nearly another fall from Proppen that time.
And at the moment, Ingebrigtsen, well, he's tucked on the inside if he's to get out of it, but he can bide his time. He's going to have to go the long way round. He's going to have to get round Ndui Kamawaya. And also Labalu there tucked in. I think Labalu's ran a very canny race, though, although now he's rather boxed with the Britons in front, including Mills. Labalu, well, he's been setting European records across this year, out on the roads, equaling the European 5-kilometre record and the setting 10-kilometre records. He's also run 12:50 on the track. But at the front, Mills and Le Guin still starting to crank it up just very slightly.
Ingebrigtsen still badly boxed with 800 to go. He won't panic. Plenty of time yet. But George Mills has been there or thereabouts in the top 3 or 4 throughout the race. Michal now with 800 metres to run. 11:27, 11:28 there with 800 to run. Now, Dickon Wenayo at the front in the colours of Spain, that familiar orange and yellow vest we've seen so much in the last couple of days. The rest of the field streaming around. But I'll tell you what, if you want to have a shot at a medal, you can't afford to be 10 or 15 metres back and in 12th or 15th or 17th place in a race like this. That's a huge spread amongst the first 15 athletes. And Jakob Ingebrigtsen now finds a little bit of daylight as they come through with 600 metres to run. George Mills doing everything right at the moment. We know he's in wonderful shape. Mills recently ran 3:31 in Oslo. He's got that good speed. Him and Ingebrigtsen must be fancying this.
Without a doubt, of course. I think just Ingebrigtsen's just biding his time. We know what a turn of speed he's got. And also Mills has really done the right thing of picking it up. And as we get to the bell, it's Ingebrigtsen taking the lead for the very first time in this race.
Ingebrigtsen in the lead at the bell then. They go through there, and the time is going to be slow. Forget about the time. This is a typical championship 5,000 metres. But you know what? The cream always rises to the top. Call it gravity. You can't resist it. And Ingebrigtsen with Mills on his shoulder now. And then Dickon Wenayo and Labalu trying to challenge him. But I feel, and I'd love to be wrong, that they've missed their opportunity. Michal on the inside, trying to run the shortest line. Spanish vests in 3rd and 4th, coming to a tussle with each other. As Ingebrigtsen around the final bend is there to be shot at. But has he got the strength? He's a master tactician. He's a master at winding it up in the last 300 metres. A little glance over his shoulder there. And George Mills, the 3:48 miler indoors, can't go with him as Ingebrigtsen changes gear and moves away. He does have fabulous finishing straight speed. And he covers the last lap now, winning by 10 metres and going away to make it a hat-trick of wins. That last lap I got at 53.6 from Ingebrigtsen, and all the hard running, frankly, coming in the last 250 or so. He winds it up imperceptibly. It's really deceptive. You really can't tell it because he's not a violent, he's not a powerful arm-swinging sprinter. He just gradually turns it up, keeps cranking up the knob and turns the speed on full speed when he hits the home straight. He's very, very hard because you've got to accelerate to get past Ingebrigtsen, Phil, and it means you need to accelerate twice, a double whammy, because he's accelerating all the time.
But all credit to George Mills in second place there. Mills, I think, did everything right. He had that long run from home. He started to crank up the pace in the final kilometre when he saw that they'd gone through 4 kilometres, and then with 2 laps to go, started to push again, and he really stretched out the field at that point. Ingebrigtsen, though, impossible to resist. He just bided his time. Labalu coming through very strongly on the last lap, but just didn't have the flat speed. He overtook the 2 Spaniards, Michal and Ndui Kamawaya, but got himself up into third place. But I think it was a missed opportunity as well for Labalu and Underkumuwayo in particular. They should have taken it out much faster, much earlier.
Ingebrigtsen, the season's best, by the way, is sort of a token figure because he's run over 30 seconds quick, and that is his first 5,000 this year. That 3:45 mile in Eugene, and then a really strong run over 1,500 metres, winning with a dive in Oslo just 10 days or so ago. Shows he's in fine fettle for a finish like this. And George Mills, yeah, brilliant bronze. First senior major championship medal for George Mills of Great Britain there. Brilliant stuff. And Labalu coming home for a Swiss bronze there. Machal and Underkumuwayo making it 4th and 5th for Spain, with Bibic, great running from the Serb, for 6th, and James West in 7th. Confirmation of yet another goal for the collection of Jakob Ingebrigtsen. I wonder if he slings them in a draw when he gets home or puts them on a display. If he does the latter, then it'll have to be a very, very big growing wall of gold medals.